Tonight on Denver7 News at 6.
It simply doesn't exist.
Empty promises from the Trump administration as the national vaccine stockpile is revealed as a pipe dream.
There is no Federal Reserve of doses.
Von Miller is under criminal investigation. A source tells Denver7 the case involves domestic violence.
Plus, dust creates deadly conditions on the plains.
An Aurora woman is badly beaten by a customer refusing to wear a mask.
And Aspen restaurants sue after learning they'll no longer be able to serve customers indoors.
I think we're a scapegoat. There's a lot of other businesses that are running normal.
We've been had. There is no national vaccine stockpile. What the Trump administration had was used up in December.
We're unsure of how they thought this was going to play out. Eventually, governors were going to find out the cupboards were bare and that the vaccines they were counting on were never coming.
Governor Polis learned this morning that the next shipment would be 130,000 shots short. He didn't seem outraged. He just looked exhausted.
Today, I come before you extremely disappointed that we were lied to with plans of the administration to release reserve doses that were to be the second doses of the vaccine. I was informed by General Perna today that there is no Federal Reserve of doses. We were led to believe just a few days ago the federal government was going to release their stockpile of second doses, and we were ready to deploy it right away, and now we know that it simply doesn't exist.
2 batches of the vaccines were ruined this week. In Pueblo, a freezer malfunctioned. An office in Lakewood blamed a power outage. Denver7 Sloan Dickey reached out to that facility today.
165 doses of the Moderna vaccine were thrown out on Thursday after a power outage at a Kaiser Permanente hospital in Lakewood.
There are freak events.
Today, Governor Polis responded to the loss of those vaccines and another incident in Pueblo this week where 300 Pfizer doses were inadvertently destroyed.
There's only been 2 incidences of waste in Colorado that I'm aware of. Both were freak incidents that I don't represent a pattern of poor stewardship. Neither one will be reflected in our relationship with Kaiser or with Pueblo.
According to representatives at Kaiser, after the doses surpassed the recommended temperature, staff immediately began vaccinating anyone available before the doses expired in the early afternoon.
In those scenarios, all of the guidelines about who the doses should be used for are waived.
The hospital was able to salvage 135 doses for use vaccinating patients, staff, and physicians in the building. Kaiser says nobody scheduled to receive a vaccine was impacted by the loss.
The priority is not to waste it, use it.
Because of the emergency nature of the vaccine distribution plan, the state does not require hospitals to have a power backup for its refrigeration. Kaiser has administered more than 12,000 vaccines so far at 13 locations across Colorado. Sloan Dickey, Denver7.
Howling winds made driving all but impossible today on the plains. Look at that. I-70 had to be closed from Lyman all the way to Kansas so police could clear up all the pileups. At least one person was killed and there were 15 others who were hurt. And at one point, state troopers ran out of ambulances. Meteorologist Stacey Donaldson tracking the current conditions and joins us live. Stacey?
That was a mess this afternoon, and thank goodness the winds are dying down as we speak. Winds across the Front Range only between 5 and 15 miles an hour. For the plains, we have winds about 20 to 25 miles an hour at times, but really earlier today, 60 to 70 mile an hour winds. We actually hit 72 miles an hour in Lyman, 67 in Burlington, all the way to 63 mile an hour winds at Cedar Point. Now, into the rest of this evening, those winds will continue to die down as the storm that's causing them is moving away from Colorado. So we are going to see improving conditions as we go through the rest of tonight. Just a few high clouds. All of the watches and warnings have all expired. So we're looking good across Colorado. We will see a few scattered snow showers showing up into tomorrow with the approaching front that will be coming into our state tomorrow. So we have some snow on the way coming up. I'll let you know whether or not we'll see that here for the Front Range and the plains in just a few minutes.
All right, Stacey, thank you very much. Von Miller is under investigation by Parker police. A well-placed source tells Denver7 the case involves allegations of domestic abuse. Now, Miller has not been arrested or charged, and while the case plays out, the Broncos now have a decision to make. Here's Troy Rink.
So what does this mean for Von Miller's future with the Broncos? The simple answer, it's complicated. And in fact, it's a little early to tell right now because they just got a new general manager in George Payton. This will be one of his first tough decisions. The reality is Von Miller is coming off a season where he didn't play it down, dislocated his left ankle tendon, and the year before he only had 8 sacks. his fewest since 2013. But Von Miller, his salary, that's also an issue. He is due $18 million in 2021. There is no way he comes back at that money. But can they restructure it? They also have to make a decision by March 17th whether to guarantee $7 million of his club option. So can they find a happy median on a restructured deal? Or will the Broncos decide it's time to move on from their greatest player in franchise history, at least defensively? For Denver7, I'm Troy Rink.
A Castle Rock repair shop owner accused of stealing his client's cars has pleaded guilty to theft. Contact Denver7 has been investigating complaints against Chad King since 2019. Customers said he would hang on to their vehicles for 10 months at a time. One man's truck turned up in a tow yard. A plea deal allowed King to escape charges of forgery and prison time. He will, however, be ordered to pay $35,000 in restitution. The CDC believes a more contagious variant of COVID-19 will become the dominant strain by March. That version of the virus spread like wildfire through the UK before turning up in a nursing home in the Elbert County town of Simla. 5 Coloradans have tested positive for it to date.
A group calling itself the Pitkin County Restaurant Alliance is now suing the county and the local health department over the decision to impose level red restrictions on businesses. The lawsuit insists there's no evidence that restaurants are to blame for the recent surge in COVID cases and claims that doing away with indoor dining, even temporarily, will be a death blow. We spoke to Pitkin County Manager John Peacock Tuesday before the lawsuit was filed. He had no illusions about how the new restrictions would go over, but said something has to be done to bring the numbers down.
We spent a lot of time trying to find different ways to tweak our public health orders so that we could have a yes and protect from the virus and maintain our same level of activity, but it just wasn't working, and it was time to do something different.
The lawsuit neither names nor says how many restaurants are involved in the so-called alliance, but after some prodding, an attorney told us 23 businesses have signed on, and the restrictions take effect Sunday.
The city of Denver will add fencing, increase screenings, and adjust office hours in anticipation of protests. Additional security will also remain in place at our state capitol. A memo obtained by Denver7 says demonstrations are expected to begin as early as this evening and last through the presidential inauguration on the 20th. Several facilities, including the City and County building, as well as the Webb building, will be entirely off limits to the public on the 20th and the 21st. Colorado lawmakers have changed the wording of a bill intended to help minority businesses.
Denver7's Megan Lopez tonight on who complained and how the General Assembly is getting around them.
You don't have to look hard around Colorado to see the struggles businesses are facing. Boarded up windows and empty seats tell the story of this pandemic. But lawmakers say some are suffering more.
We know that minority-owned businesses have been disproportionately impacted by the COVID pandemic. All those in favor say aye.
So during a special session in November, they passed a bill dedicating $4 million in COVID relief to minority-owned businesses. A move some argue was unfair. Locals Barbershop in Colorado Springs filed a lawsuit recently saying race shouldn't be a factor.
It's wrong and unconstitutional for the government to not consider the applications of some businesses or put those at a disadvantage because of their race.
With the start of the new session, lawmakers are changing the bill's wording from minority-owned to disproportionately impacted and giving the Office of Economic and International Development reign over relief.
It's usually an understanding that it's probably a lawsuit that we're going to lose. And so we need to change what we did to make sure that that's okay.
It still has a provision giving preference to minority businesses, though. The attorney for the barbershop says the changes are nice, but
the bottom line is that the current bill, even as proposed, is unconstitutional because it still gives preferences on the basis of race.
Representative Herod disagrees.
We absolutely believe that this bill will stand up to any court challenge. This piece is specifically to support minority-owned businesses and those who are disproportionately impacted, but we do have funding for all small businesses as well.
While Representative McKean says maybe this lawsuit should serve as a lesson.
I think this highlights how we shouldn't pick and choose everything. Instead of picking people out of the pool, let's just make sure we define the pool and then let that apply equally to everyone.
Megan Lopez, Denver7.
Aurora police say this man beat a gas station manager senseless because she told him to wear a mask. Customers want him caught.
What happened to her should have never happened.
Dust storm for the eastern plains with winds up to 72 miles an hour today. Coming up, I'll let you know when this wind will finally leave.